The big news, obviously, heading into this season, there was no doubt it was going to be the rule changes, and underline the S in that, because there were a lot of rule changes coming in from, the pickoff rule, or at least the pickoff limit, to obviously the pitch clock, the bigger bases, the international tiebreak with a runner on second in extra innings. Not a big fan. I know my co-host is not, and I'm beginning to learn that as well, that it's not ideal. It's not Major League Baseball. But Brianna, what are your thoughts early on what we've seen essentially in the first 10 days of the new quote unquote MLB?
Well, I mean, there's already been a couple ejections, and I know you're probably going to talk about one of them because wasn't he the first one to get ejected?
I mean, not a huge, maybe, I guess I wouldn't have said I would have expected him to be the first to ejected, but he definitely would have been my pick to be the first one where some controversy comes. But yeah.
Well, the second person to have been ejected that I saw recently, I don't know if there's been any since, was Tim Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
The White Sox, and nobody knows if he actually had called time or not. So, I mean, apparently there was 11 seconds left on the clock, and he was accusing, I forgot who was pitching that game, of a quick pitch.
I just hope that there's some wiggle room. And, Rob Manfred has said that, nothing's set in stone. They are, they're going to probably tweak, maybe mid-season, or even maybe after the first month of baseball, they may tweak some things. I do think, obviously, on Machado's side of things, both of these ejections started off by asking for time or requesting time. And in Machado's case, it's tough because it looks like he's requesting time with 7 seconds left on the clock, which is essentially the time where batters need to be alert. Now, at the same time, umpires also need to be alert, so they might not be exactly looking at the umpire. I'll give the umpire a little bit of grace in terms of the strike call, because look, the umpires, the last thing that they need is more responsibility. But in this case, I think there were too many variables for him to see Machado call timeout. However, I think the ejection was incredibly soft. Once again, I think it's these umpires who go and say, if a player says 10 words to me in a yelling fashion, I'm going to throw them out no matter what. I think that's what we're seeing now. Their egos continually getting in the way. Same thing with Tim Anderson as well. These guys are going to chirp. They're going to have some issues with the rules and maybe a call you make. But to throw them out right away, especially in Machado's case, it was the bottom of the first inning. Like, come on, you let the game breathe a little bit. So I do hope that
Diamondbacks.
So yeah, and it's just not to say, I mean, look, that was the bullpen that gave the game up, and I'll get deeper into the Padres a little later, but so not to say that Machado being thrown out changed the outcome of that game, but I tell you what, I would have liked to have Manny Machado still in that lineup going forward, but it is what it is. Like I said, I think hopefully we'll be able to kind of change some things. Obviously the games are shorter, but I do worry about the quality of them. All I heard about in the first week, I don't know if these announcers are getting paid like an extra bonus every time they talk about how quick the game is going. But I mean, my local broadcast team, Don Orsillo and Mark Grant, I think they're great, but I've had to mute them the last 2 or 3 days because all they talk about is, oh, wow, it's only 2 hours into this game, or, oh, wow, we're only an hour into this game. And it's like, guys, just call the game. Like, I'm tired of hearing that situation about the shorter game. It's great, fantastic, but I would prefer more baseball, not less. But I guess I'm in the minority in that situation. The more pitchers are having to call their own games, and I don't think it's a change in culture for pitchers or anything like that. I just read an article the other day that one of the pitchers said that the reason a lot of pitchers are calling their own games is they literally don't have enough time to shake off their catcher. So they have to put their pitch in that they want, because if the catcher gives them a pitch that they don't want, they don't have time to shake them off and get to another pitch. I think that's definitely a detriment to the pitchers. Obviously, the stolen base numbers are going through the roof with the bigger bases, and the pickoff limit. That's the one that really got me. The pickoff limit, you can only throw over twice, and then the third time it's a balk. It makes you only throw over once, because the minute you throw over twice, the runner knows, hey, I can go on first movement because this guy literally cannot throw over. So it's almost like you can only throw over once because you still want to have one in your back pocket just in case. And look, I think the worst rule out of all of these was the banning of the shift. It essentially, in my mind, it's equivalent to telling a defensive coordinator in the NFL, you can't play nickel on third down. It doesn't make sense to me. I might be being dramatic in this, but I could see maybe in 5 to 10 years we're in a situation where pitchers are only allowed to throw 2 off-speed pitches an at bat. Because you know what? All these pitchers or these hitters haven't been able to figure out how to hit the off-speed pitches. Well, guess what? Let's change the rules so that these hitters can hit, 300 or 400, whatever it is, break some records. So we bring in 6 more eyes to baseball. I'm not a fan of a lot of these rules, but I am going to give them, a little bit more time to kind of figure out how to go about this. And I also kind of understand that there's no going back. We're not going to get rid of these things. So I just have to get over it. But we shall see. Once again, I think the last thing the umpires need is more power for these rules, as we've seen with Tim Anderson and Manny Machado. But it's going to be interesting going forward, not just this year, but in the future, see how it's taken care of. So